Daily Solutions Podcast. Daily Solutions Podcast. Daily Solutions Podcast. Daily Solutions Pod. Daily Solutions Pod. Daily Solutions. Daily Solutions. Daily Solution. Daily Solution. Daily Solution. Daily Solution. Daily Solution. Daily Solution. All right, welcome.
Hey everybody.
To the Daily Solution.
That's enough of that. This is Ashkahn.
I am Graham.
And we answer questions every day here.
Including today.
Yeah.
And that question for now is...
For now.
Yeah, for
it might change halfway
right
through the episode?
No, I mean, like, for now as in now is today.
Oh, I see.
Like now in the broader sense than this exact moment, you know?
But not in too broad of a sense to, like, leak into tomorrow.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm with you now.
All right. What do you mean by that? I'm working on a shirt design for my float center and trying to find a balance between simple and informative. Will you describe your shirts and give your thoughts on shirt content? Yes, we will.
Yeah, we can do that.
You sounded a little dubious, and you're like, is this going to be the one question we don't answer?
Skip.
No, this is the toughie.
Well, this is one where I feel like we are...
opinionated.
Yes, and we don't have exactly the same opinion as I think a lot of other people do.
Yeah.
Like, we're on one end of a spectrum with I think, these shirts.
We kind of do an Emperor's New Clothes thing and sell people our invisible float shirts that only appear to the pure of heart.
If you really understand floating, you'll see how beautiful these shirts are.
And that's worked great.
You charge a lot for them.
Yeah, very little overhead to carry those, so that's nice.
So there's kind of a, like, I almost want to say a range of very abstract T-shirt design that doesn't mention anything about floating or your float center's name or anything like that.
Yeah, like a weird diver popping out of kind of like an octopus tentacly thing with bubbles flying out.
All the way to... I've just seen extremely, like, utilitarian float shirts that are just like, name a float center. This is a float center, like, and they have
like business hours on there, like.
I don't know, business. I've never seen business hours.
Oh yeah, utilitarian, man.
A small tablet with just so you can hit, directions from wherever you are now to how to get to the float center. But their websites, like maybe a catchphrase, phone number, like things that are just
photographs of the owners,
photographs of us,
really common actually to include me and Ashkahn on people's float shirts.
So that's our recommendation. You should probably get that going.
I've heard there's a huge ROI.
So yeah, and then somewhere in the middle I think is just your logo on a T-shirt.
Yep, and we now do have in fact T-shirts that have our logos on them.
But
so that's cool.
Why it took us many years to make those.
And before that, we didn't go the informative route. We went the crazy artistic design route that just did not really outright mention anything about floating or float on, except on like a tiny little, about like 1 inch long thing down by the bottom right hand side of the T-shirt.
Just had our little like
tiny
head
little
swoop logo.
Yeah.
So our idea was very much like, if we make cool enough T-shirts, the goal was to make a T-shirt cool enough that someone would see it and be like, whoa, cool T-shirt. Like, where'd you get that?
What's the deal?
What is that about? And that would just be something that seeded conversations about float tanks and about us float on. And the way we decided to go about doing that was not to rely on our own artistic skill, because that didn't seem like that was going to work. But so we ran like a small T-shirt program. Like, we had artists and we knew some artists from the artist program we had just run, and we literally just did a thing where we had like some people come in and float and had them create cool T-shirt designs out of floating. And we released 3 different T-shirts, all in that same style. Like our logo was very small and just like the far bottom lip of the shirt on the side. And other than that, the rest of the shirt was just like cool artwork that kind of was inspired by floating and seemed kind of floaty just in the very nature of what it was.
Which is awesome. Like, I still really like that model for doing T-shirts.
Yeah.
And it does work really well. Like, there are a couple of those T-shirts where almost every single time I wear them out, I get comments and I get to start that conversation.
For sure.
So, like,
totally. That
according to plan,
happened.
like, it actually succeeded in that mission, you know?
So that's really cool. And then and it's just like this. The shirt has a much more interesting story behind it too, which I think is nice. Like, those shirts are pretty easy to sell because everyone likes a good T-shirt, and we also made like high quality T-shirts too. I feel like that's an important part of it because it's really easy. Again, you're listening to this podcast because you want to hear our opinions, and that's what you're about to get. But I just feel like if you make a t-shirt and you just choose a really cheap t-shirt, you like
It
people
says
may
something
buy it.
about your brand.
No,
too.
it's not even that.
What?
It's just
What?
that
What is
like
it?
I don't like wearing those t-shirts. You know what I mean? Like I don't like if I have t-shirts like that and I'm like searching through my wardrobe to decide what to wear for the day, I don't choose those because they're not comfortable and I don't like wearing them. So like what's the point of like that half measure? What's the point of making a t-shirt even if you can sell it to some people, but it's not really nice enough or comfortable enough for people to actually want to wear? Like you might as well take that extra step and really make it like a cool and nice t-shirt so that people do actually wear it around. So to me, it's never like the cost savings just makes me feel like I basically did nothing. Like I didn't really even make a t-shirt.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I don't wear around even our like for when we went on float tour.
Yeah.
we were giving away so many T-shirts as we travel around. We couldn't afford to get the really nice ones for that. And I don't even wear our float T-shirts, like our float tour T-shirts, as much as I wear our other ones because they're not as pleasant. And also, I think it says something about your brand.
Yeah.
Just to kind of shut that down early.
For sure.
And I wanted to come back to it, which is we're in this business where we're asking people to go into this state of relaxation. Often when you get out, things feel different and you're more aware of your tactile perception, your scents, your tastes. And so to go from that to just sort of a generic rough T-shirt just doesn't feel like what a float center should concentrate on, nor do I see many doing it. You know, I'd say the far majority of T-shirts that centers produce are actually really soft and they do have that tactile pleasure to them, which is really cool. So I don't think I'm totally crazy. That's all. I just wanted to.
No. I mean, I think that's a part of everything, right? Like everything you're putting out in the world is a part of people's experience with you.
Yeah.
But I just also think it's useful to think about it from a very practical point of view.
Yeah.
Like at some point you're saving money, but you're not actually getting the intended effect of having people wearing your t-shirts.
Yeah.
So
we think it's good. Invest in soft T-shirts.
Yeah,
Material
for sure.
almost more than design, I think, is actually one of the really important things.
Yeah, I mean, people often, that's a big factor in how they choose what they're going to wear, at least for me.
And we started making logo T-shirts specifically because we had customers requesting it.
Yeah.
Like they were like, hey, these T-shirts are really cool, but I kind of just want to rep Float On around. And we had specifically avoided it because we didn't want to be one of those people who just tries to use our customers as walking billboards.
Right.
But
we fought it for a while. I mean, it was years before we actually made them.
And it turns out people just loved our business and they did want to rep us around and they were kind of proud of coming to Float On and far from feeling like we were taking advantage of them or turning them into billboards, they were requesting that they have something they could wear with our logo. So yeah, I think we were kind of a little too opinionated or in our own heads at some point. But I mean, another good thing about actually listening to your customers is you get to change the stupid assumptions that you made early on. So yeah,
and we still kept it like it doesn't say anything else. It's just like a nice kind of relatively small, clean version of our logo on the front of a shirt. That's it.
Exactly. And still soft material and everything like that. So
what's funny is our employees wear it around a lot when they're working the shop too, because we also don't have any uniforms or require any sort of wearing a certain thing, when our employees come into to work, and they've naturally just started to wear Float On T-shirts as they're working their shifts.
I know, it's really funny. That cracks me up too when I go into the shop and everyone's wearing Float On T-shirts and has their matching kind of aprons that they wear, and I'm like, we didn't require any of this.
But it does, I will say too, we have a lot of float T-shirts. People, we went on that float tour and people gave us shirts everywhere we went.
Yeah,
which is awesome. And I will wear shirts that have a lot more descriptive information on them than just like a cool design or a logo. And those do generate a lot of conversation too. So I won't say those are like not effective or anything like that. Like it's not. Like same thing will happen where I'm wearing that, where people are like floating. What is that? Is that like, or especially if someone's heard about it a little bit, like having a T-shirt that very explicitly is about float tanks is often enough to spark a conversation or make people interested in being like wanting to ask you and talk to you about it.
Yeah, it is true. I find the same thing. Like, although my instinct for making Float On T-shirts is not to go that informational route. Yeah, I totally wear around other Float Centers T-shirts that are in that vein. And you're right. It does actually have people comment on them, or I have people comment on them when I go out. So yeah, there's probably not a right or wrong way to do this. I will say, getting an actual designer to help you through the process, making sure that your T-shirt image is in a vector format, that it's good for printing, that you understand whether you want to do like a single pass or a double pass with the screen. There's a bunch of little details where if you haven't gotten into screen printing or T-shirt making beforehand, that you should just find someone to kind of hold your hand through the process, and definitely find someone who feels comfortable enough with design that they can produce this vector image for you, not just you kind of drawing it out in Photoshop or
Right.
something like that. And have fun.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to change it up. It costs a little bit to make new screens when you're printing T-shirts, but changing your T-shirt design is not even the hardest thing in the world.
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of the nice things where options can be nice for people. We had 3 different designs running simultaneously, and people had fun like looking through them and seeing. And then we also printed those designs on multiple color schemes sometimes. So we had almost like 6 varieties of T-shirts to choose from. And we had like a little T-shirt station, and it was cool. Like people kind of like looking through it and seeing the one that matches their style. And there's something nice about options, I think, so that because people just don't like wearing clothes that everybody else is wearing.
Yeah.
Like, you like feeling like you have some kind of unique clothing choices. So it's one of the few places I'll actually recommend more choices than less.
And I will say there's a limit to that, which is for most products, it's like if you decide to carry Miracle Fruit, for example, you end up carrying a single pill size and a box size. And that's really all you have to stock. And if you carry T-shirts, all of a sudden you have to have men's and women's.
Oh, yeah. It's a
You're
huge
doing
headache.
extra small through extra, extra, extra large. You need to know the kind of distribution of what sizes people are going to order. If you
Yeah.
want it always on hand, you need to actually inventory all of those and make sure you're ready to make another order of shirts when you're only out of certain sizes. Like the complications that come
for
along
sure.
with clothing is really intense. So
It takes up a lot of space to display them too.
yeah, I mean, if we were doing more than 3 designs, I don't think we could have managed it just in the huge variety of sizes we'd have to carry, making sure we're stocking them. It gets just really intense. So do be aware of that. It's one of the more complicated retail items to carry and to keep in stock.
Yeah, and it's a lot of money up front because
Yeah.
you got to buy all that stuff, all the different sizes and enough of each and stuff like that.
Cool.
Yeah, okay.
Good question.
Yeah,
Great
send us a
question.
picture of your T-shirt if you think you have a cool one. I was like,
Evan, we'll describe it over the airwaves.
kind of a bubbly thing going on.
All right. So if you have more questions, go over to floattanksolutions.com/podcast.
That's right, and we will talk to you guys tomorrow.
Bye, everyone.